Hello there, and welcome to today's webcast, Off-the-Shelf versus Custom AI, Why Tailored Solutions Are Better for Solving Public Sector Challenges. I'm Barry Condrey, Senior Fellow with the Center for Digital Government, and I'm excited to serve as the host for today's webcast. Thanks for joining us. We're going to have a great session over the next 30 minutes. Joining me today to discuss this topic are Michael Kares, Head of Enterprise Sales for AOT Technologies, and Sumesh Kariyil, Senior Product Manager, AOT Technologies. Michael, can you please take a few moments and introduce yourself?
Thank you, Barry. Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Kares. I'm Head of Sales for AOT Technologies. I've been in the software business since 2000 and seen a tremendous amount of change, beginning with the world of Windows and, of course, now all the way evolving to the exciting world of AI.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Welcome. Sumesh, can you please take a few moments and introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Barry. Hello, everyone. I'm Sumesh Kariyil. I'm a Senior Product Manager with AOT Technologies. With over 18 years of experience, past 10 years, I have been consulting with public sector agencies in various capacities. Currently, I'm managing a product called AI, which is a low-code form automation platform for public sector.
Great. Thank you, Sumesh. Thank you. Welcome. Okay, we have a poll question to get the webinar started today for our audience. This is the audience's opportunity to participate and drive the discussion with our panelists. So, what challenges do you see with AI adoption in the public sector? And you can pick all that apply. We have quite a few challenges here. You may need to scroll on your screen, depending on the format of your screen, to see the ones at the bottom. And it's everything from you're unclear where to start to the length of time to produce a solution. You can read all of the options for yourself, pick the ones that are appropriate for your environment. And while you answer that question, I'll go ahead and get us started. You know, delivering services as a government is not like delivering them to private sector. Too often, we try to make the same tools work for government that work in the private sector. It's important to have access to the same innovative and impactful technologies as the private sector and to have them tailored to government operations. Governments need the speed, efficiency, and frictionless advantages that these technologies like AI can bring. Our panel will help us understand how we can harness the AI technologies for the unique aspects of government operations and improve service delivery to residents as an outcome. So let's take a look at our poll results from our audience. So we've had a great response to this. It looks like the winner is security and data governance as a challenge for AI in government operations, followed closely by the skill set of the staff. Okay, very good. And then unclear where to start and how to define and scope and map the type of AI that will be used. Investment required to produce a solution was also very high. So that's a great response from our audience. Thank you so much, audience. And our panelists will make sure that they address these as we go through our questions. So, Michael, we're going to start with you. So, let's start with you. Help us understand the landscape here a bit. We've all used ChatGPT, chatbots, and other canned AI solutions like that, and they're amazing. What are the differences between these generic solutions and purpose-built solutions?
Sure. I think there's three that I want to really talk about as it pertains to AI in government. And the first one is actually the fact that it's not focused. And that really goes to the issue of skills that was just raised in the poll, in fact. If you have a generic solution, you then you have to require prompt engineering. And then you put a barrier between the user and the technology. And so generic solutions don't have that kind of tuning to the use case and application. So that's the first issue with generic solutions versus custom built. We want to abstract the user from having to be a prompt engineer. We want to make it natural and easy, even if it's a unique situation, especially when it's a unique situation. The second issue in terms of custom versus generic is licensing costs. You know, the cost when you're talking about broad deployment, they can be very prohibitive. And then you wind up with the issues of overpay, underutilized, or of course you have if you don't do that, then you have the uneven distribution approach, which is conflicting for government at best. And then, of course, the third element is we're in the start of AI. I mean, we're excited about this, and it's great, and we're loving it. Do you want to commit to an LLM at the very beginning of a process, or do you want to have an architecture that would allow you to switch out that LLM when technology changes? And custom solutions solves all of these problems. It solves the problem of prompt engineering, makes it very easy for the users to work with. It solves the issues of cost and distribution, broad distribution, and it provides future proofing as well. So those are really the key points, I think, and some of them relate very directly to what the poll questions were, responses were.
You know, Michael, I like what you said about future proofing. I think we've all learned over the course of the last year and a half just how quickly these technologies can move, and any future proofing you can do in this fast moving environment seems to be a great investment for your organization. So
Absolutely.
that's a great grounding in some of the principles behind you know, custom AI development. So Sumesh, let's go to you. Now, you know, the way Michael lays this out, this all sounds very promising, right? Like all of the things that we can do to ensure that, you know, the custom AI development is a good fit. What are some of the technologies involved in producing these custom solutions, and how does it all fit together?
Yeah, it's so when you think about any solutioning, whether it's AI or non-AI, a lot of things have to fit together. So especially with AI solutioning, the key thing is the data, because the quality of the output you get from any AI system is as good as the quality of the data. So data could be structured or unstructured. And it could be coming from various sources like data warehousing, databases, ETL pipelines, API and middleware, or unstructured data could be coming from some document management system. So first thing we will need to make sure is like the data is aligned and massaged and labeled, in case needed, so that it can be properly consumed and fed to any system, any whether it is AI or non-AI. And another piece is the AML frameworks and ecosystem around it. So on that specific one, I think nowadays everyone talks about LLM, but LLM cannot solve all the problems, right? So you may end up using more than one AI tool or solution to solve a specific piece of the problem. So for example, like you would need some predictive modeling, or you would need some OCR and document extraction. Because why OCR and document extraction is important is for public sector agencies, it's all about like automating some of the paper-based system or solution. And like we do have, or there are tools or libraries available to support this. For example, like if you're talking about cloud platforms, Azure have document intelligence, AWS TextRack, or Google Vision API, which we can leverage. Or we are trying to build something local. There are like tools to support many of these OCR operations. And when it comes to predictive modeling, there are tools like TensorFlow, PyTorch, or Scalar, which we can use to build our model. And the next one, and I think the buzzword thing here is the LLM. There also we have a lot of options. Say if you want to use LLM to solve a specific piece of the problem, then there are hosted and public options. Hosted from OpenAI or Anthropic or other Cohere, etc. And there are public options like Llama from Meta or Mistral models. And there are various every day we are getting new LLMs into the market. And when it comes to the ecosystem to support it, again, it can be cloud-based, where machine learning studios from Azure, AWS, or GCP, or any other platform can be made use of. And if it has to be something locally built and governed, then we have options like Olama, GPT for All, and LM Studio. Again, it's an evolving space. Every day, new tools and new ecosystem or new platforms are coming into place. And last most important thing is the security and compliance around it. I think even the poll question, in the poll question, that was the first concern. So there again, it's a conscious decision, what kind of ecosystem and what kind of tool we want to use to align with our security standards. and how we can support the encryption, and what are the different types of audit trails and role-based access control which needs to be in place. And when it comes to hosting, again, it's a conscious decision on whether to go for a cloud-based solution or on-premise or private cloud or virtual private cloud, etc.
Okay, I want to take you back to the first thing you said, data, right? So you said you're only as good as your data when it comes to your AI. The good news is we're really good at making data in government, and we have lots of data laying around to run the run the AI over. But it sounds like there's a lot of options for the frameworks, and there's a lot of options for the tools to create, the AI-enabled applications. I would imagine that having the right partner is a really important part of picking those tools and orchestrating them and building the frameworks. So thank you for laying that out for us. That was a great way to conceptualize it. So Michael, let's go back to you for a moment. Let's talk about some of the use cases that you see agencies adopting, and where the customers are really finding the most value in the custom AI solutions.
Yeah, thank you, Barry. That's going to be a short answer because it's hands down chatbots. That is the clear and far and away the most demand. What we're seeing though in the chatbots with government though, of course, is what we call a secure chatbot, where the data is not exposed directly to the LLM. So the architecture that we propose and approach is one in using a vector database, using RAG, and then calling the LLM, but the data itself is not consumed by the LLM. So we're keeping a layer of segregation between the two. And then thirdly, along with chatbots, one of the most common items that come along with that is sentiment analysis. So that's really the primary areas of focus that we see right now.
Okay, so when you say secure LLM, it sounds to me like you're not talking about a public LLM. You're talking about a private entity, correct?
Sumesh, do you want to cover that? I think he can do a better job than I can.
Yeah, there are ways to handle it, Barry. So as I said, based on the governance, we could go with the local LLM. Even with the local LLM, there are multiple options where you can take a publicly available LLM and host it in your infrastructure. Or there are ways to retrain that LLM and make it domain specific for your government agency. So yeah, there are security involves a lot of pieces. It's not just about where you host it. It's there are a lot of pieces around it.
Okay, there's a lot to consider. And you mentioned sentiment analysis. I think a lot of customers are just now looking at the benefit and the value in sentiment analysis as a way of gauging residents' feedback and residents' feelings about their environment. So that's something that's you can do with a large language model with the chat, but it's a little harder to do with humans, right? When it's human versus AI intelligence. So thank you for that, Michael. Yeah. So, okay, Sumesh, let's go back to you now. This all sounds great, but it seems like a heavy lift to have to develop all the AI components from scratch and to integrate all of this. Sounds capable, but it sounds complicated. So how can you help with that? Agencies will want to find the fastest path to improving service delivery. Help us understand how they can do that with this, what looks to be a complex arrangement.
Yeah, it's not heavy lifting actually. When it comes to any solutioning, we need to be very careful about return of investment, right? And we will need to do proper assessment and see whether we are ready to undertake some huge investment or some huge tools into our ecosystem. So how we approach any solution is if AI can solve a specific issue or a problem, then then only we think about AI, right? So if it is something which can be solved by existing tools, we don't even need to think about any AI into that particular solution. So normally we go with the foundational and base models which are available in the market from platforms like Hugging Face. So whether it is LLM or other AI models, there are base models which you can make use of. For example, if your requirement is some computer vision model to be built, then there are some base models which can be retrained using your own model, your own data set. And like when it comes to the studio ecosystem to support it, as I mentioned earlier, we can use like cloud-based machine learning studios, or as long as it supports the data residency requirements, or you can even build some of your pipelines locally, just like how you build any CI/CD platform into your system. ML ops, we don't have to be scared of with the name and all. End of the day, it's all about how we can manage the start to end of that process, right? And many of the studio provide an option to retrain your data set. So even if you are not an AML engineer, you'll be still able to build some models and make it running. Uh, and nowadays, like there are a lot of low code and even no code options available, like in some of those studios. And when it comes to LLM, we have seen like few ways to use it. One is, as Michael said, is a rack-based approach where we make use of generative AI capability of that LLM, and the data is kept on our side, and we feed it to the LLM as and when, like based on the need, right? And there, one advantage is like you can keep your solution LLM agnostic, since we are getting a new LLM almost every day. That's a wise way to like design your solution, as long as like your solution can be solved using RAG. Um, um, so that like you can switch the LLM with a better one next day, like as and when things are available. And another way we have seen how LLMs are being used is by retraining LLM with your own domain specific data so that it can perform certain tasks. And like there are tools to support it, not tools, like there are framework or ways to do it, like using technologies like LoRa. And by using this thing, like you would be able to convert LLM into an SLM, which is a small language model, which can be locally hosted. And another way what we have seen is building agentic workflows, so that like you can autonomously build or execute some of the task in a certain workflow. And one thing to remember here is like when we talk about RAG or retraining, it's not exclusive. Like you could use both like in a solution. It's all about what your problem is, what exactly we are trying to solve. That's why building a custom solution like is very important. Like most of the time, a single tool cannot solve all of your problem. And when we approach any problem, we try to reuse existing tools. So for example, like if it is a RAG-based solution, if the agency already has some vector search tools in place, we could make like Elasticsearch or Pinecone. We could make use of it in our RAG-based solution. Then all you would need is like to add an LLM into your solutioning and like build some custom application around it. And we try to convert the application or any AI component into microservice, so that using Docker and Kubernetes, so that it can be reused. So the key thing here is like based on the solution, based on the problem, the solution could be different, because I don't think there is one solution which can solve all the problems in the world, right? So it's all about like what exactly we are trying to achieve.
I heard you use the term reuse quite a bit. It sounds like once you go down this road, you start building pieces and parts, and then you can reuse them for different applications. And the studios that you're talking about, I'm sure aid that development as well. And also, you're talking about a lot of future proofing, which is what Michael was talking about in terms of, use one LLM now, retrain, use a different LLM later. So future proofing, I think that's really important for people to understand. That's great. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. All right, so Michael, let's go back to you now. As you know, government operations can be unique with intricate business processes, and how do these custom solutions fit in those business processes?
Thank you, Barry. I think. Well, I'll start my comment off at the beginning of this question with, the FOMO, fear of missing out. I think there's a lot of that going on with AI, and I think the approach has to be grounded and pragmatic. You don't need to run into AI for the sake of AI. And Sumesh has shared this already. We want to focus on proper process, due diligence, discovery, find out what the problem is and work forward from that. And then once you understand that, you'll find the appropriate use for AI. So I think that's the grounding principle from an AI approach. You don't want to try to force fit, which we have also shared already. I think what I've got on the screen in front of you now, I want to share a few things because practical examples, because I want to bring home what we're talking about in a practical way. Sometimes we talk about these things in theory, but in practice, what you have in front of you right now on the screen is a chatbot. It's an AI generative chatbot, and it's a production tool. It's designed to build forms. So government loves forms. Government lives on forms, and it's designed for that. But it's designed to allow a non-technical user to be able to speak to a chatbot and have it build the forms for the corresponding underlying form management system. In our case, it's Forms Flow, but it could be applied in anywhere. And I'm just going to walk through briefly here a couple of slides just to give you a sense of it. And to confirm, so here we're going to put a request, and this is a request, common problems right now, vacation rental businesses, so governments are needing to get a handle on who's doing what in their regions. So we'd ask it to build a form for a business owner and their various properties. And the form has been created. You can see the owner and then a multi-row section down below for the properties that the owner has. The user is going to add another prompt. Can you group the data into sections? And the system says, yeah, I can make it look prettier and do that for the user. And continue that process. We're going to simply ask it to give us a file upload, and the prompt is generated. The AI is generating the file upload. We're going to ask the AI to move that to the bottom of the upper section, and the AI has moved that. And what you'll see here is the reality of, if this was not tuned, you couldn't do this generically. This has to be tuned because the user doesn't have to be able to prompt engineer, hey, what are you building this for? The system knows all of those things, and the user is able to just talk to the system. They have no technical skills. They just know what they want, and generative AI is creating it. So that's a great example of a chatbot. Sumesh, probably we're running low on time, so I won't take too much here. Let me move forward. I've got a second one here. This one is a POC, and this is a RAG-based POC using a vector database. It does not expose the data. It does not consume the data by the LLM. And it was created, this was created for a client, and it only took 2 weeks to do as a POC. So this is not production, but it's a 2-week POC. And I think that helps people get a sense of what's the commitment, what's it going to take to put my toe in the water and try this out. That will give you a good sense. You're talking about a couple of weeks of effort here. Now, on this POC, we split up PDFs from website, and that was for the purpose of POC. Now that could, of course, be combined, but the first web query that we have in front of us is, can you provide steps to register a company? And of course, this is going to be looking at the website and giving a description of all the things that the person needs to do. And then it has web links down below to affirm the content where it came from. And the second example I'm going to share here is PDFs. And again, this is where are the project conditions for fish and salmon habitat is the question the operator is using. Again, human language, no training required. And we've got here now the response with the PDF and the pages down below. So I just want to cover that very quickly and maybe turn it back to you, but I think that helps to illustrate some of the practical elements that we've been talking about today.
I like what you said about people shouldn't use AI just for AI's sake, right? It's a solution. Okay. It's a solution to specific business problems.
Yeah.
I like that. And you and Sumesh have used the term RAG a bit. Can you define that term? Because our first question, and by the way, for the audience, if you have your questions, we're getting ready to go to audience questions. Please go ahead and submit them for these two amazing panelists. But can you define RAG for us real quick? What does
Sure. Retrieval augmented generation.
Okay. Yeah, so in a technical way, how it works is all your data stays in a vector database. And as and when a user enters a query, we do a semantic search on the vector database, then find out the relevant information from the vector database, then feed those information into an LLM and construct a generative response.
Okay, so this is the process of using a database as the back end to the chatbot or the LLM. Is that sort of what this boils down? Okay. All right, great. Let's tell you, we're going to go into our audience questions because we've got a couple of pretty good questions here. And the first one comes in, and Sumesh, it's a question for you. And it's basically, they want to clarify what you're saying about agencies building their own models. Is Sumesh saying that there are agencies building their own models, RAG or fine-tuning a commercial LLM, sure, but a model seems cost prohibitive. Can you respond to that?
Yeah, sure. See, one thing to consider here is like when we think about like, large language model, when GPT came, large language models are like, huge, right? Then after that, lot of evolution happened. So even if you look at the latest Meta Llama models, they are coming in 2 billion like parameter, and even the Gemma models or Mistral models, there are very lightweight models which even you can run in any of your PC. Even the GovQuery one, which Michael was demoing, that LLM is running locally in a like laptop, and you can like even like there are evolutions happening where you can like run LLM in your pocket-sized device like mobile phone or tablet. So when we think about like retraining an LLM or any other model, even though the name is a large language model, like there are a lot of ways they are compressing the data and restructuring, sorry, redistributing the data between the LLM and the weights, and like there are like a lot of studies happening on weights distribution, on how to compress these LLM effectively. So so it's technically feasible to retrain an LLM and with your own domain specific data and convert it into SLM, which you can run in your local infrastructure. Again, like some of these would need some GPU support, but it's not huge, undertake from a cost perspective. And when we talk about RAG, RAG doesn't need a retrained LLM. What I said was like it's not exclusive. Like you can have retrained LLM along with RAG, but like RAG itself like doesn't need a customized LLM. We can, because end of the day, all we are trying to do with the RAG is like we are trying to make use of the generative capability to build a like better answer. Of course, there are context window and token limit coming with like in each of the LLM. Those sort of things needs to be taken into consideration based on the requirement.
I think just to be clear, the agencies aren't building their own models. They're tuning models or using commercial LLMs. I think that's the point of the heart of the question there. I wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. Well, it's a good point of clarification. It's a great question. I thank the audience for that. Michael, the next one is for you, and this is probably something that's on a lot of people's minds. Can you briefly tell us, well, anyway, the question is, we consider ourselves innovative and like to use pilot projects and proofs of concept. Is that something you can do with this kind of development? I think you were just referring to a proof of concept. Can you
I think
briefly give us a little background on that?
Absolutely. A POC is a great way to get started. I think there's such trepidation in the marketplace. I think that, what kind of people taking that consideration, how do you get started and how do you figure this out? A POC is a great way to get your foot into the water, to test that water, to get a validation, to get a consensus within a team, which is really critical. I know there's a lot of varying perspectives. So how do you do that? So a POC in my mind is the best way to wade into this slowly, see what it's about, get a feel for it, again, gather that consensus. And then once you have that, and then you can begin to explore, okay, we've got that POC done. Well, what do we need to do? And then you can scope something out seriously. But I think what it does is really gives you a starting point. It's like you can't do it with starting in a vacuum, and no one wants to commit to a huge project. That POC is, I think, that beautiful place to begin.
That's great advice. It illustrates the art of the possible for the customer, right? And so that's great. Okay, well, look, I could talk all day with you guys about this. It's a fascinating topic, but I want to be respectful of our time commitment, so we'll have to wrap it up here. In closing, I would just like to thank Michael and Sumesh for sharing their insights on today's webcast. And I would also like to thank AOT Technologies for making it possible to have this important webcast discussion today. And thanks to our audience for spending time with us and asking us questions. We look forward to seeing you again at another government technology event. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.